Yeah, I'm about to go live. the chat at the moment, having some YouTube things, but we should be good to rock and roll anyway. So as you guys know, we start off this call with what's going on in crypto. You know, we start off with the news. And so I think it's really important to dive into that, because a lot of people will just look at one element of the market, right? There's three forms of analysis. You have technical analysis, fundamental analysis, and sentimental analysis. And so what is fundamental analysis? Well, that's looking at the news. That's looking at the things that have come out in the press. That's looking at, you know, maybe there's like a US-China conflict going on, or an Iran-US conflict. Like there's the Greenland acquisition that is being discussed, right, between England and Denmark and America. Like all of these market things has an effect. We have things such as FOMC, where the interest rates are released, like, you know, 8 times a year. We have things such as unemployment claims. Like we have many different news that affects the foreign exchange market, which is currencies, but also affects the commodities market, also affects the equities market, which is stocks, and also affects the decentralized space, which is cryptocurrency. And all of these markets intertwine with each other. But the better you can get at those three forms of analysis, fundamental, technical, sentimental. Sentimental is the feeling, is the public perception of the market. The more of an all-rounded investor and trader you will become. So let's start off with this. 2 main points I wanted to touch on is, number one, Coinbase actually have pulled their support from the crypto bill, the Clarity Act. Now, we understand in 2025, there were 3 main acts that were brought into play, brought into discussion. This is a difficult question. But what are the 3 acts with stablecoins that have been discussed in 2025? Put in the chat box, what are the 3 acts? Right, I mentioned one here, the Clarity Act. There's another stablecoin act. And I can't see the chat, but maybe hopefully some of you guys got this right. But the other act is called the Genius Act. So we have the Clarity Act, the Genius Act, and the Anti-CBDC Act. Now, put in the chat box, what does CBDC stand for? If you've been joining our calls every Saturday for the past, damn near almost a year probably, you may have heard us speak about the Anti-CBDC Act. A CBDC is a central bank digital currency. This is what us as retail traders and investors, we probably don't want. We probably don't want the Federal Reserve creating their own stablecoin, because if they do that, we're going to have the main populace go over to their stablecoin and not realize that they're giving up ownership, not realize that they're actually giving up the keys to their crypto, right? They're allowing the government or government agencies to potentially restrict the amount of crypto that they use, restrict the amount of crypto that they hold, and put parameters around that, which completely defeats the purpose of crypto, right? Because the benefits of crypto that we love and that we're this is why we're fanatical about it, is the fact that we have ownership, is the fact that we have our own private keys. We can spend it as we want, how much we want, whenever we want, 24/7. And it's partially anonymous as well. So having a central bank digital currency defeats the purpose. But if you're not like us, if you're not on this call, if you're not educated, if you're 50 years old and you have no idea and you're fearful, when you're more of a conservative investor, and maybe you're basically a risk-off investor, right? Risk-on means you're willing to invest into riskier assets like Bitcoin. Risk-off means you prefer to invest in things like index funds like the S&P 500 that gives you like a stable annual growth. Well, if you're that kind of person, you're going to say, hey, I don't want to manage my crypto. I don't even believe in this thing much. Let me give it over to the Federal Reserve. Let me just keep it here. Surely it's safe now that the government's offering services, right? So that's what CBDC is. And so Coinbase, with the Clarity Act, have actually decided to walk away, basically pull away. And there's this cool article diving into it about it from the Clarity Act, because even though they didn't go into details as to why they're pulling support from this Clarity Act, but it kind of implies that there's things and details within it that they're not happy about, right? There's rules within it. There's restrictions that they're like, hey, I don't want to be a part of this. This is meant to empower the public with crypto, and maybe the Clarity Act has things within it that is taking away that power that they're not happy about. And don't forget, Coinbase is one of the largest exchanges in the world, guys. So they pull a lot of weight. Brian Armstrong is the CEO of Coinbase, and my personal opinion of Brian Armstrong is very, very positive. I like the fact that he is being innovative. I like the fact that Coinbase is supported in the majority of countries. They have a wide variety of cryptos to buy from. They have various crypto capabilities, such as staking. And if we go here to the crypto exchanges, guys, Coinbase is number 4 in the globe. Coinbase is the 4th largest exchange in the world. And Binance is number 1. I'd be careful with Binance because it's kind of, the CEO is called CZ. He's got ties to China. It's a little bit dodgy, but most of the Binance users are over there in the Asia part of the world, but most of the Coinbase users are in the Western side of the world. So Coinbase is a pretty good exchange to use. But I found that interesting because in 2025, guys, we had the Genius Act, which was passed. It was in July 2025. And let me just, if you have a notepad and pen, because for the next 7 minutes, I really want you to get this down. The 3 acts that have been discussed. Number 1 is the Genius Act. What is the Genius Act? That is an act which supports stable coins and creates a framework for stable coins in the United States. It has in the Genius Act things such as a reserve requirement that stablecoin companies must have in order to be in the ecosystem. Let me try and break this down. A reserve requirement means this. A stablecoin is pegged one-to-one with the dollar. You have USDC, you have USDT, you have DAI, you have a BUSD, you have Binance stablecoin. There's many different stablecoins out there. But whenever there's a black swan event is an unprecedented, unpredicted, unanticipated, massive calamity in the crypto space, right? Like FTX when it collapsed in 2022, like COVID pandemic in 2021, right? Like these are unexpected things that affect the market drastically. Whenever that event happens, right? This is really, really important. Stablecoins need to have the backing, the financial funds, the reserve pot of money to ensure that they can maintain one-to-one with the dollar. Because if a black swan event occurs, your $100 in stablecoin, if that gets depegged and it's no longer one-to-one, your $100 might actually fall to $90 to $80 to $70 because the stablecoin doesn't have the liquidity, the reserve funds to provide one-to-one with the dollar again. Very important. Put a 10 in the chat if you guys understand what I mean here. This is so, so key because I literally have friends who had money in stablecoin, 1,000, 10,000, 50,000, protected, safe. This is the safe haven. But when that black swan event happened, guys, that 10,000 went to 9 to 8 to 7 because the stablecoin company like Circle behind USDC, like Ripple behind like USDC, like Tether behind USDT. The company behind it didn't have the reserve money to protect users in that volatile market. That's so key. So make sure you write that down and remember that, okay? So that's what the Genius Act is about. The Clarity Act, which is what we're speaking about. This is about defining assets categories. Put a 10 in the chat if you remember when the SEC, the Security Exchange Commission, the government entity that manages and regulates the financial flow of money and things. Put a 10 in the chat if you remember when the SEC went after Ripple, right? You remember XRP, SEC, they had a whole lawsuit because the SEC were like, hey, we believe you're a security. And Ripple were like, no, we're not a security. We're a crypto coin. Like, we're in a different category. And there was this back and forth for like 2 to 3 years. And when the SEC lost the lawsuit, when Ripple won, what happened to the price of XRP? Boom, it went up. It went up because they were like, hey, the SEC did not have a regulatory framework to back their perspective. But now the Clarity Act, which has been passed in the House, but not passed in the Senate, it's not been fully passed yet. Now the Clarity Act is going to be able to define the asset categories for cryptocurrencies. Like, number one, is this a stablecoin? How are we going to treat it when it comes to the legal side? Is it a privacy coin? We're going to touch on that in a minute. Or is it a oracle, or is it a derivative? Because the way that they class these assets is going to be the way that it's treated from a legal perspective. And once they've confirmed how they're treating it, what you're going to see is more money in crypto, more innovation, more projects coming in because they're no longer scared that they're going against the law or they're breaking rules. I hope that makes sense. And the last one is the Anti-CBDC Act. I've already spoke about that. That is all about blocking the Federal Reserve from creating their own stablecoin, not just creating their own stablecoin, but from designing their own stablecoin and from basically like anything to do with we may create a stablecoin to regulate this space. That's really important. So those are the 3 key stablecoin acts that I want you guys to keep in mind. Now, I'm going to touch on one last thing for the next 2 minutes, and this is really, really key. So, privacy coins. Privacy coins. Now, there was been the Iran-US conflict has been going on for the past few weeks. And so, well, really you can say decades, but it's been reignited in the past few weeks. And so one thing that I noticed about the market, guys, is that there are, like, most of us on this call, we're reasonable investors. We're reasonable traders, right? We're not degenerates. We're not degens. Some of us, I don't know if Jason's on this call, but he is. But, we're pretty reasonable. However, there are opportunities to capitalize from that are time restraint, that are basically like You have to be there to capitalize. And regardless of what type of trader or investor you are, it's good for all of us to realize, recognize that, hey, in 24 hours or in 72 hours, I can flip my money. Like, this is a possibility. Like, I'm not saying put your whole portfolio in it, but I'm saying, like, if you got spare capital and you're aware of the market and you're plugging into the live sessions from the educators that we have in the platform, guys, there are opportunities to double your funds in 24 hours. And this was one of them. So let's track back for a little bit of a history lesson. Who remembers the Trump coin? Put a 5 in the chat if you remember the Trump coin. Now, this is a bit of a meme coin, right? But the idea is that people were making 50%, 200%, 300% off of investing in the Trump coin. Why? Because they anticipated the hype behind it and the news that would come out. There may not be utility. It's not a utility coin, but it is a little opportunity that you might want to put in 0.5% of your portfolio just to play around and let it ride. Now, Iran-US conflict, guys. Check this. So Bitcoin has been rising in the past 7 days, right? We know this. And there was a certain category of cryptos that were booming. That category was privacy coins. I'm going to explain why. So this Iran-US conflict is all about this. The US have been discussing attacking Iran. And so Iran currency has been dropping. It's been depreciating because of the potential US sanctions that are being put into play. So what we saw is Bitcoin wasn't rising initially, but something called privacy coins were. Privacy coins were. Now, for those of you who are like OGs in this space, you may have heard of cryptocurrencies such as Monero, such as Zcash, such as Dash. Guys, look at this. Look at this 7-day, 100% on Dash, 10% on Zcash, and 33% on Monero, guys. And the reason why they were pumping is this. Who is Iran's biggest trade partner? Iran's biggest trade partner is China. Now, is China an ally of the US, or is it typically like an enemy? It's an enemy of the US, right? And so in Iran, with the currency depreciating, where would they want to put their funds? Like, if you're a citizen of Iran, a resident of Iran, working in and around Iran, like, where would you want to put your money? Well, you wouldn't want to put it in Bitcoin. Why? Currency is depreciating. Well, let me put my money in Bitcoin. It's going to rise. No, because Bitcoin is not actually completely anonymous. I don't know if you guys know this. Bitcoin is what's called pseudo-anonymous. It's basically semi-anonymous. You know why? Because things can be tracked on the blockchain. And if the government want to find the wallet that you have in the centralized exchange, they can find it. They just need to call up Coinbase, call up Binance, call up MetaMask or whoever and say, hey, these guys KYC'd on this platform. Yeah, no problem. All right, we need to find out how much crypto this guy owns because he's late on payments for his house, or he's actually got a criminal case going on, or we believe he's actually a ally of Iran or of China. So let's take his account, seize it, and you see what I mean? So Bitcoin may not be the best shout, but what is a good shout? Privacy coins. Privacy coins. Because the anonymity, I struggle to say that word, is virtually complete. And so Monero, Zcash, and Dash, Monero is like an OG coin, guys. Like 5 years ago, this was being spoken about. They've been pumping because that's where the money's been flowing. Because of the US sanctions on Iran, they've been putting their funds into these kind of coins. And so I realized this like 3-4 days ago. I sent it to Gil, and we were late. Like the coins were already pumping. However, what if we got the intel like 24 to 48 hours earlier, guys? We would have been good. And so you can see the 7-day chart, like it's just been rising. So I'm not saying that because, I want you guys to like ASAP jump into the project now, but I'm saying that because I want you to realize the opportunities that come at hand that are in a 7-day window, 24-hour window, 48-hour window. And this is the key. This is why we should always have some cash in stable coins ready to deploy for opportunities like this. Guys, put 5 in the chat if this is making sense. That is my section. I wanted to dive onto those two key things, right? So we spoke about Coinbase pulling support from the Clarity Act. We spoke about the 3 stablecoin acts that are being passed through legislation in the US, the Clarity, the Genius Act, and the Anti-CBDC Act. And we spoke about privacy coins, what they are, and how to capitalize on those types of opportunities. Put some 10s in the chat for my brother Gil, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say, brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Appreciate you, bro, for being on today's session with us. So I appreciate you. If you guys learned something today, put a one in the chat. If you learned anything, which I learned a lot, John Luke actually came in clutch with the really with the
Gil, just
whole.
checking everything's good.
Yeah, everything should be good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm on the YouTube.
Amazing. Sounds good.
All right, brother. Appreciate you. Bet. Well, appreciate you guys. Well, appreciate John Luke for taking the time. I remember a couple of days ago, actually, it was like on Tuesday, I believe, like after the train night, and he reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, bro, like, everything with the Iran and then, data privacy coins," and I was like, "Damn!" And we were looking at it, and he was right. We were behind the curve because really, and I'll show it here a little bit as well. Really, some data, oh, sorry, privacy coins literally went crazy. And, that's what John Luke was talking about is that it's important to, that's why things happen. Obviously, you can't catch everything, but also it's important to be positioned, right? So if you go to even like CoinGecko, you can kind of see, I kind of start with this. It's like, what are some privacy coins that even exist? And it's interesting because these are things that people aren't talking about, right? It's like you don't even think about these things when they're happening. But you can see in the last 7 days, we literally had tokens. This one, I wouldn't really buy anything that's like unknown, but like, something like this went up 1,000%. So these went 200%, 100%, 100%. Monero is the most trusted one, but they had some issues, but it went up 33%. So this is kind of interesting to see. It's something that I'm gonna probably be starting into, not to like invest, but to be looking at like who's next on privacy, because the only one I've ever heard of is Monero, and they had some issues, with a big collapse and hacks and stuff like that. But I'm interested with this one. I was looking at this a little bit. I'm not gonna like call it out or talk about it. Like I need to do more research with this, but these are just an example of a privacy token, which I think in crypto is going to be very, very important, because it's just important, right? Like people make money off of hacks. People make money off of that, right? That's why in the real world we have like warranties, right? Like warranty companies are very wealthy. I don't know if you guys know that, right? So it's understanding these things, privacy, insurance. Those are two things that I think in the next 5 to 10 years are going to be super, super needed and super key in the crypto markets, right? So this is just something that I'm going to start looking at too, because I saw what it did. It went 100%, right? It went from like $40 to like 75 in like literally like a day, or yeah, like in a couple of days. Its market cap is under a billion, but it's about to hit a billion. That means that this token is almost a main cap token. That's interesting to me, right? Because remember, we got main cap, mid cap, low cap, and this is about to be a main cap token. So interesting. I like that it has money, and I also like that it has a very good max and total supply, right? And right now, its total supply is 12 million, but the max supply is 18 million. Now, the max will ever be is this. That means there's still more tokens to be printed, but not many. I kind of like this. I really like the tokenomics. I like this number. Yeah, I really like this. I'm gonna start looking into this a little bit more. So if you want to look into it, if you're a little bit more advanced, look into Dash. And even if you're connected here in Powerhouse and you have my direct line or in the chats, like, hey, let's talk about it, right? But I kind of like this. I'm gonna be kind of a little bit more intrigued of privacy coins as well, and kind of look at other things to take advantage of. But other than that, what I want to start today's sessions is going a little bit of kind of what's Bitcoin, what's Ethereum doing, what is the market doing. This is something that you can find on coinglass.com. If you go to data, you literally go to Bitcoin returns, and it's going to give you the percentage per quarter, percentage per month. I like to see this. It's not something that I only dictate myself off of this, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit on how I personally believe the markets have really changed, and the markets are actually changing. And honestly, I'm very intrigued where things are going to go, because I'm going to show you guys in the chart in a bit. Okay. But what I really wanted to show you guys is, kind of where we're at right now. When it comes to Bitcoin, January has been green, except for 2022 for the last almost, well, if you count this year, is 6 years, right? So I do expect for Bitcoin to be green, in my opinion. I personally expect the first quarter of the year, which you can see more times than not, it's green, right? That means it's positive. And most of the time it ends from a bearish last quarter. Like, look at these numbers. You go from this, or actually, these were just super green because this was like the last bro one, right? But then you saw red, and then you saw green the next quarter. Then here you saw green, and then you saw green. And then here you saw red. I'm expecting green, okay, for the first quarter of the year. But we'll see what happens there. Now, everything follows Bitcoin, right? So if Bitcoin creates all-time highs, Bitcoin starts to move, then everything else will move as well. All right. So now what I wanted to show you guys is what is the total market cap showing. This is a chart that I always like to use. It's one of my favorite charts. Because it just shows all the market in crypto, right? All the money that exists in crypto, which I think is very important, because it gives you the bigger perspective of not just one crypto, but the whole market, which I think we need to start seeing this like that, because it's going to be kind of like the stock market, right? Now, one thing I wanted to kind of, I was looking at the charts, before we started today, and while Jean-Luc was kind of like going to his game of the day. But I wanted to talk about this because it's very interesting to me that the markets, the markets speak, right? The markets show you more than sentiment. They show you more than anything. The charts show you the reality over the fake, right? When the market is bullish, the market is bullish. When the market is bearish, the market is bearish, right? You can't really fight that. And one thing I've realized is this, and I don't know if you guys see the same thing as me, but what I see in the total market cap is that in the past, we literally have only had two types of moves. We've had bullishness. Well, actually three. Retracement, consolidation, bullishness, retracement, consolidation. Put a 5 in the chat if you can see that. Put a 5 in the chat if you can see that in the past years, we've had bullishness, retracement, consolidation. Bullishness, retracement, consolidation. All right. So, what's interesting to me now, and when I say bullishness, I'm only talking about, mine are blue candles. Yours might be green, right? But these are only green candles. Think about this. Only green candles. Okay. But what's happening this run is that we're getting bullishness, but we're not just getting crazy blue candles. We're getting what we like to call structure. And this is something that hasn't been seen in Bitcoin ever. Never in the history of Bitcoin, we've actually had structure. And in my opinion, that is a good thing, right? Because if you compare this to things like the S&P 500, okay, and you look at this, and you're like, okay, what has the S&P market been doing, right? It's been creating bullishness, retracement, right? But it's been creating what we call structure, right? Put a 7 in the chat if you can see that. S&P, there's been structure, right? The NAS 100, there's been structure. It's all bullishness, right? And that's what I like that we're seeing personally in crypto. That we're seeing structure. Now, what does this mean, right? I don't know, right? I'm not saying, it's only going to go higher. It's never going to get retracements. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that and I've said this multiple times on these sessions, we're living in different times, okay? We're not living in the same times we were living in 2020, 2018, 2017. Right now, we're living in a different time. Why do I say that? Because it's not retail money that's moving the market anymore. It's not even retail money who's in the market. It's institutions. It's big banks. Now, why does that matter? It's because when the big banks and institutions have their money on the line, I'm not saying they're not going to let it happen, but they're basically not going to let it happen because if you look at this, right, banks and institutions have been invested in these markets for centuries, for years, right? Since it's kind of like since Wall Street, all of that, okay? And I don't know if you guys know this, but one of the safest, and that's something I'll be talking about in sessions like this too, one of the most secure ways to build wealth is just buying an index and taking 10% a year for 30 years, 40 years, right? Somebody like Patrick Kenny, if you're on Zinra and you understand that who Patrick Kenny is, I highly recommend him. He talks about this all the time. I watched one of his sessions. It kind of blew my mind. And he says this, and this is something that I just gonna bring a side note to it. If you're able to have the ability to have $100,000 in a ETF portfolio, by the time you retire at 65, you have around $5 million. Now, put a 5 in the chat if you would feel grateful if you had $5 million at retirement. Because I don't know about you guys, but my parents are, in their 50s, and they don't even have 1 million. They don't even have 100,000 saved, right? We're living in a world where, retirement is not even the thing anymore. Because why? Because people have to work. I remember seeing teachers at their 70s working, not because they want to, because they had to. But imagine if you were able to put yourself in that type of position. Now, I'm not saying anything else doesn't matter. Of course not, right? But what I'm saying is this, and it's something I learned from Patrick Kenny. I always like to give credit where credit is due. Now, where I learned this is where I learned it from, which is everything that we have access to here in Zen Ryan Powerhouse, right? What I've learned is this. The hardest part about creating wealth, from what I am learning, because I'm on my way, I'm not there yet, I'm on my way, right, is waiting. Is literally waiting. That is the hardest thing as an investor, is waiting. It's not how much, it's not how much you can put on a day. It's not, can you buy the best prices? It's not, can you find the best retracements and the best entries? Is, can you be patient? That is the hardest thing. And I think that applies to trading as well. Is, can you be patient? Okay. So I want to talk about that to give you guys perspective, but also to give the connection on where I think crypto is going. It's going to be more of what we've seen with the S&P, is what we see more of the NASDAQ, because now there's ETFs. Now there's infrastructure that's been in the stock market for years going into crypto. And that is a very good thing. But what does that mean maybe for the average person? Now, for the average person, that might mean that it's going to be harder to actually have access to crypto. It's going to get more difficult. There probably will be more hacks. There's probably going to be more manipulation. Why is this? Because they want people to then end up not trusting themselves, which I know it's not any of us here. But they want us to go and say, you know what? I don't trust myself. I want to be secure. I would rather go put my crypto in JP Morgan. I'd rather buy their ETF, which ETF, right, is basically you having a note saying you have this amount of Bitcoin, but they actually buy it and they actually have it, not you. Okay. So in the stock market, that's the only way to get into certain things, right? Like the S&P, right? The NAS, that's the only way you can get to an ETF. You can't just like go directly in the market, right? But the beauty about crypto is that you can buy Bitcoin yourself. You can buy Ethereum yourself. You can buy Chainlink yourself. But you know what the interesting thing is? More and more people will not do that. We're actually are going to be doing it through banks. And they're not going to hold it for themselves. Now, that's why we're here to get ahead, right? To give you guys a perspective of kind of where I see things is I really like the fact, specifically with Bitcoin, that we are looking at a good rejection area from here. We've been talking about it on these sessions. If you've been hopping on, I'm happy you're here and you're here every single week. And, myself and Jean-Luc had a quick little conversation. We're going to have a deeper convo in the next, sooner rather than later. But we had a good conversation on what we wanted to do with crypto and assets. And I'm here to let y'all know that I know we say it a lot on Powerhouse, but the best is yet to come. We're going to have a lot of exciting things planned for every single one of y'all on these sessions. So I highly advise, if you're watching this, to make sure you're on these sessions. I know today we did an hour earlier. Usually we do these calls at 1 p.m. CST, 11 p.m., 11 a.m. PST. I don't know if you guys like these times. If you're in Powerhouse or you have direct access to me, if you're on here, if you like these times better, let us know. Let us know if you like this time better than a little bit later. I know Saturdays we have a lot of different things. I use Saturdays to get ahead. So who knows? Maybe we keep this time. Maybe we go back to just the 1 p.m. CST. But I'm here to let y'all know that we have some exciting things planned. So make sure to note these down on your schedule. If you're somebody that's just watching this for the first time, you can go to our description area, fill out our form, and have access to our free channel, and also next steps on how you can get full access on what we have. But since we're streaming on YouTube, everything is here, and we'll be here on a week-to-week basis. All right. So I didn't want to talk about that. But other than that, this is kind of what I've been liking, that we rejected these area, and we've been rejecting really well. Okay. There's one thing I said last week that I was waiting for, and it's called a break of structure. Okay. A lot of you guys know this. This already happened. All right. Very easy market structure. We have officially created a break of structure. And what I like is that it's maintaining up here. I do see a retracement before we go higher, but I personally really like the structure that we're looking at. Now, could we go here and then go again? Yes, we could. I can see that happening as well. But regardless, I like the fact that we created a break of structure, and we're looking really well, in my opinion, going through Q1. So what I'm looking for specifically with Bitcoin, and again, everything follows Bitcoin, I'll talk about the other coins, is I personally do like Bitcoin coming into this area right here. Okay, around the 92,000 area is what I like. Now, when this happens, I'm going to be looking at crypto as a whole. Okay, so I like this area to then get into better entry. So what does that mean for other tokens? Well, Ethereum looks very similar, right? Ethereum on the daily time frame has not really broken structure yet. Okay, Bitcoin is ahead, which that's what happens. This is what the break of structure zone would be for Ethereum. But because Bitcoin already did it, I still like these areas. Okay, I like these areas right here. If you're looking to get into Ethereum, really anything under 3,200, I really like. We were talking about under 2,000. 3,000. If you got into Ethereum under 3,000, congratulations, you are up. Obviously, the job ain't finished, but we're up around 20 to 25%, just from what we talked about on these sessions. All right. So that's why it's important to plug in to stay ahead, because opportunities don't last forever. All right. So Ethereum looks there. Chainlink, something that we've been talking about, hasn't also broke structure. This is the structure that we want to see broken. But right now it's looking pretty decent. Now there is a potential that we could see lower if Bitcoin, I'll tell you guys this now, if Bitcoin comes back into this zone, which it could happen, Chainlink will go below here. Chainlink will definitely go below $10. And if Chainlink goes below $10, all I'm saying is, I don't know what you're doing, but you need to put money aside for this. Okay. Chainlink is one of the biggest things I have in my portfolio, is what I really believe is going to do a lot of big things, way bigger than what it's done, only because it's involved with everything now. Before, it was literally only involved with Ethereum, which is wild to me. But now it's involved with everything in Bitcoin, in crypto, in general, right? Another token that I've been talking about is Aave. It's still kind of in our DCA zone, but I really like this token. It's a big sleeper, the DeFi protocol. Again, we have exciting things coming, so we're probably going to have a DeFi segment here very soon as well. And then we have something like Ondo. Now, Ondo is something that got called out on our app here on Zenrai and Powerhouse for a leverage idea right here, which is a trading idea. I personally like it for our portfolio around here. Okay, I am in Ondo myself. I'm actually down, which is completely fine. I'm not worried. But if it comes into the 30 to 32 area, guys, it just going to all-time highs is a 500%. Ondo, it has partnerships with Chainlink, which I already told you guys about Chainlink. Ondo is going to be, in my opinion, the biggest for real world assets. They're plugged in with the government as well. They're really in position. All right. They're based in New York. And they have a lot of things already ready, right? And Alan said full port under 10. Alan said it, not me, but I agree. I agree for sure, right? Then we have ICP. I know ICP is something that Powerhouse, the community that we're in, loves, right? We had a pump, and like I said, oh man, if you have a little bit, I'm not really worried. But if you had a lot, taking profits in times like this is not a bad idea. I'm not going to lie, but I can see ICP coming back to under 3.5 and then maybe making one more run or a couple more runs on the way up. Now, I am going to be letting you guys know this as well. For ICP, fam, we don't want to see this. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. Why? Because anytime this happens, look what happens. The market goes down. What I want to see for ICP is this. I want to see consistent structure. I don't want to see this. This is a no-no. This is, I don't like it. Okay. I want to see structure in this asset. I want to see, can this pull up, do this, and then maybe make a big pump like this, right? Maybe, right? But I want to see consistency. Now, I do like what ICP is doing. Actually, like, I'm actually a way more aware and way more excited about ICP for what they're doing. But regardless, it's not something that I'm putting all my marbles in. I'm not saying you cannot. I'm more of a conservative guy. I've learned that. I've been unconservative and it didn't benefit my way, even though I saw money, but then didn't see it, right? But ICP is a main cap token, so it's, decent. The reason why the price is low, even though it's a main cap token, compared to what it's done, is because they've had more in circulation. So they've created more tokens right now with their ecosystem that they have now, which is now like the AI stuff that they have, the caffeine .ai. They're actually going to be burning more as well. They're going to be burning more tokens, which is good. That's what you want. When you have a project, fam, that has an unlimited max supply, that means there's unlimited. It prints, right? You want a burning mechanism. Same thing with Ethereum. Ethereum has an unlimited amount of tokens. But you know what they also have? A burning mechanism. What does that mean? That means, actually, for Ethereum specifically, anytime you send Ethereum or somebody sends Ethereum, there's a gas fee. That amount is being burnt in the blockchain. So it's being deleted. Think about it like this. Imagine if every time you spent $1, parts of $1 got deleted, got taken away from the ecosystem. That is what creates balance, even if there's more printing. That is something that $1 is the complete opposite. It's being printed, but nothing is deflationary with that asset. But Ethereum is. So Ethereum isn't like Bitcoin. Bitcoin is something that is like gold, has a limited supply, right? Well, gold technically says they have a limited supply, but it really doesn't because they keep finding it everywhere, right? Just saying. But Ethereum is, think about it, the Ethereum like the upgraded dollar, because Ethereum is used more, right? There's literally $14 billion of 24-hour trading volume. That means that's how much volume is in the market on a 24-hour axis, right? It's a lot of money, right? So that's why they have something like that. But like I'm saying, ICP, I really do like it. If you have, don't have ICP in your portfolio, I would start to look at it. But I highly recommend, if you do not have Chainlink, look at that first. If you do not have Aave, trust me when I say this, okay? Look at this first. If you don't have Solana, look at this first. Now, can all these tokens do 10x? Maybe, maybe not. But that's not what we're looking for, okay? We're looking for assets that we know for sure eventually will do things, right? We don't know the timing of it, but we got to look for something that has a lot of the backing behind it, all right? Solana, I really like it as well. Really anything under $150, I think it's an amazing asset. And we'll see what it can do. It hasn't really done what, anything else done. So the market's still building up. But Solana, Chainlink, Aave, guys, is the first ones I would look at. Personally, I would even look at Ondo first, but you could put Ondo and ICP in the same category, okay? Because they're high risk, high reward. But you don't want to have over 50% of your portfolio in something that's high risk, high reward. Okay, you can have 10, 15, 20, 25 if you're a little bit more, whatever, right? Again, this is just my opinion. But here are a couple. And then one more I'll give you guys is Uniswap. Uniswap is also a big sleeper, guys. It is the #1 decentralized exchange for Ethereum, guys. I personally like anything under $5. Uniswap under $5 is such a deal. Okay, such a deal, such a great opportunity. I've been waiting for this. I'm not in Uniswap in this one right now. I am waiting for under $5 and seeing what the market could do. But it's a $3 billion market cap. Its circulating supply is 634, so that's pretty good. $1 billion max, but right now it's still not there. As you guys can see in the past, we got into $50 or $40, like $42. So we'll see. I can definitely see it's $5. Like even it going to $20, guys. That's a 4x. Like I'm gonna take most of my runs at $20, $25. Then I'll hold to like 50 and above, right? But remember, I've said this multiple times. All you need in crypto is a 3 to 4x. If you can do a 3 to 4x every run, do the math. Look at the amount that you have in your portfolio, you want to have in your portfolio. Do 3 times 3 times 4 and do it every like 3 years. Boom, 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 boom. You're going to see how much that multiplies. But a lot of people are looking for the 10x year one, and then it doesn't happen, and then they get burnt out. Or it does happen, and then with one token, and then the other token, they do the same thing, and they lose it all. So I want to highly recommend for you guys to be smart in this bull run with everything that we have here. Now, to end today's session, right? I want to keep this, right before 1 p.m. CST. To end today's session, guys, I'm going to give you guys a quick update on what we're looking at with stocks. Okay. Netflix, I've talked about this. Netflix, I personally like this going to 70. I was waiting what it was doing here. I'm not in Netflix myself. I'm actually going to wait. I don't like the structure. So I'm going to be a little bit more patient and wait under 70. Oh, man, I'm excited because under 70 is a steal for Netflix. Like a steal. This is an A-rated stock. If you don't know what that means, go to Patrick Kenny's course on Zinrine that we have access to. Go to his course. Watch his stocks. He goes through what to look for. We probably will talk about these on these sessions as well. But this is an A-rated stock. Okay? So if we get this, this is a very good asset to have in your portfolio. Roku is another one that is actually an A-rated stock as well. Okay? I like Roku at $100. Roku is plugged in with almost a lot of the TVs that exist today. Literally during COVID, they saw a huge run, okay, during COVID, right? So I personally like this going into what we're going to. We could see under 100. It could come a little bit lower, more like 75, but I do like Roku as well. So look into that. PayPal is another one that I do like as well. It has good. I think it's like a B. I don't know if it's an A or B. I don't remember. But it's either one of the two because it's up here. But I like PayPal under $60, 55, right? I want to see PayPal break below these lows right here and see if it can come around 54. All right. So I want to be patient. If it wants to come to like 40s, that's insane because PayPal is definitely going to be a great opportunity going into 2026, 2027. And then we also have Block. I've talked about this. Block is looking at retracement right now. If you haven't looked into this, they own Cash App. They own Square. And they're doing a lot of things with crypto as well in those companies. So I like Block in this area. So really anytime now or a little bit lower, around like 60s, 50s, I personally like for Block. So you can stay a little bit patient with this if you're looking for a stock portfolio. But yeah, you can look at that. Now, another stock that I like that is very cheap is Snapchat. Their numbers aren't crazy good. They're decent. But what I like about this is the risk to reward, fam. But what I want to look for, I want to be patient. I want to look for under $7. Okay. I don't want to execute early. I want to be patient. Can we see Snapchat in this area? This is the area that I will be accumulating Snapchat. I think this is the best opportunity because it's either going to zero or there. So the risk to reward is very high. It's either going to be done or it's going to be one of the biggest opportunities of the next coming years. All right. So that's why I'm looking for Snapchat. And then we have Nike. Nike, I talked about it. New CEO. This guy was a part of the company for so many years, and he did a lot of good things. He was a part of the whole Michael Jordan era. He was very connected and involved with it, right? So I like Nike coming back to the $60 area. I like this area, guys. I like this area for Nike. I personally really like this potential. Their numbers aren't that great, but the likelihood that I like this is because of the opportunity it is. Okay. One thing I said at the Dallas meetup we have out here in Dallas. So shout out if you're in Dallas. I said this. If it's not an A-rated stock, if the financials don't look great, but it's a company that you use or you know people that use, and it has over a 50% retracement, it is a good opportunity. Okay. Nike is down 65%. Is it used? Yes. I go to Nike all the time. This is actually Adidas now. I'm going to a Mavs game, but they use Nike now, right? My family, my wife, now my sister-in-law, they work. My sister-in-law works at Nike now. My wife used to work at Nike, so I get Nike all the time. This is probably the only Adidas thing I have, right? Because it's an OG. But when I go to Nike, it's packed. Every single week, it's packed. Every time I go, it's packed. So obviously, people are buying Nike. So the Nike just took a hit, but it's a good opportunity as well. Now, the last couple ones I want to show. Oh wow, this is moving. It's Target. I talked about Target, guys, last week. Target last week was around under $100. Guys, we are ripping above. We are ripping above on Target. I like Target because, again, same thing. We go to Target for everything in my family. I actually used to not like Target, but I actually like Target now. I think it's cool. I don't know. I just like it. And I'm probably not the only one. I go to Targets now and they're packed out. They're packed. Literally, right? So I personally really like this. If this can come back, I will love it. Like, I was kind of being patient because I wanted to see break of structure. And guess what we've gotten, guys? Ladies and gentlemen, we have gotten a break of structure. So what I want to see is I want to see Target stay up here and maybe come down one more time before we go to creating what it wants to create. But I really like Target, so add it to your list if you're looking at it. Last three I'll go through is the next one is Coinbase. This is an exchange for crypto. Highly, really like this. I'm not in this. I didn't get the opportunity to get in this, but I like Coinbase under $200 or at $200. Okay, this will be a good opportunity. Coinbase is going nowhere, so imagine you having access to the stock that is in crypto. It's you having exposure in crypto. So I personally really like Coinbase under $200 or around this area, and I can see doing it some great things in the next couple of years as well. Right now, it's down 45%. I want to see around 50% retracement before I get in. And then these two are big sleepers that, again, high risk, high reward. One of them is Paramount. Paramount took a big hit. They were supposed to buy Warner Brothers, which what took this. This is a good example of buying the rumor, selling the news. The rumor was them buying Warner Brothers. And you know what's crazy? Warner Brothers rejected their higher offer. They offered more than Netflix. But Warner Brothers rejected it. There's a lot of legality behind that. There's a lot of things behind that. I'll talk about it maybe another day. But this is what caused the market to come back down. I think Paramount has great opportunity. They have great partnerships. They now have the NFL on Thursdays. Right? If you guys didn't know, that's Amazon Prime, and it's actually connected with Paramount. That's their live streaming that they use. Amazon is Paramount. Just saying, just so y'all know. Okay. So I really like this. I like this under $10. I want to see it take out these lows. Okay, and come into this area. I'm going to be pretty heavily probably invested in this. I like Paramount personally. I think they're doing a lot of cool things, and they're partnered with Amazon, which I think is huge. So that's huge. And then the last one I want to talk about is Comcast. Now, if you guys don't know, Comcast is what owns NBC, is what owns Orlando, Orlando Studios, is what owns, Peacock, right? A lot of things that they're doing, they own. And I like this. I use Paramount a lot. Paramount, they have like the Premier League. They have Sunday Night Football now because NBC. So they have a lot of different things, and they're actually opening a Universal Studios. So they own Universal Studios as well. They're opening a Universal Studios out here in Frisco in Texas. So, hey, I'm not saying that one catalyst, right? But they're still building. They're still growing. Peacock is taking over. They're like literally Peacock is keeping them like in motion. And this stock right now is actually down 50%. So I like this. I want to see Comcast maybe come around the $20-$25 area. I want to see this. One thing that I also saw with Comcast is it had a big engulfing candle. I mean, volume. It had a big volume that took out all of this. Okay. So I really like that pump that it gave, but it wasn't a big candle. Think about that. It wasn't a crazy candle, but it was a big volume. Something I'm learning through our platform here in Zinra as well with Zach and Jordan and all the amazing educators we have. So that's everything we have, guys, when it comes to stocks, when it comes to crypto. Put a 7 in the chat if you got some value. I went through a lot of stuff. I went through the charts. I went through navigating on what you should be looking at. Now, I'm letting y'all know that going into this quarter of the year, myself and Jean-Luc will be preparing more information. We're going to be having segments of like DeFi segments. We're going to be having real world asset segments. We're going to be having only stock segments. My goal is to give you guys the framework needed so that we can capitalize in these markets, but also so that we can also maximize what we're learning on our own platform. Just so y'all know, everything I've learned is from our platform. Everything. Literally 99.9% of it has been through the educators like Mike Sotero, Patrick Kenny. So if you want to also watch it from the source, guys, go on their sessions, go on their courses, watch the course, and then go on their live sessions. That's what I do every single week. And if you're not a part of Powerhouse or what we have here, go into the description, fill out the form, put that you were on crypto and assets. And myself or Jean-Luc will be able to help you with the next steps on what to do to capitalize on what we have with. So with saying that, familia, I appreciate you guys for being on today's call. I'm excited for what's to come. I'll see you guys next Sunday. If you're a part of Powerhouse, also, I'll see you guys on Sunday Night Live. But like we always say, the best is yet to come. Peace.